Too early to tell, and that's as honest as I could be. Do I think I have starting talent? Absolutely. Do I think a lot of things that I've done were devalued in not the team's perspective, probably the media's perspective? Absolutely.
Stephen A., you got to love his answer there. He's shown a lot of humility. But what do you think, in your opinion? Is Cam still a starting quarterback in the league?
I don't think so. That doesn't mean he can't be again. But, you know, your play ultimately has to speak for you. And I know we have to take COVID into consideration and things of that nature. The man threw for 8 touchdowns and 10 interceptions in 15 games. Let's put that in its proper perspective. 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in 15 games. That's putrid. I mean, what do you want me to say? COVID, yeah. Being bereft of weapons on the New England Patriots because Bill Belichick didn't draft appropriately and didn't put the right guys on the roster. Okay. The team, several of its players, most of them defensive players, by the way, electing not to participate because of COVID-19 and the kind of year this was going to be. Okay. But in the end, 8 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, even though it was at a 65% completion percentage. That is not what a starting quarterback in the National Football League makes. And this is a league MVP, a former league MVP, albeit 5-6 years ago, 2015, that we're talking about here, that has had a lot happen to his body because he was Superman, because he wanted to run with the football as much as throw the football, because he subjected his body to a level of punishment that ultimately has Father Time knocking at your door a little bit earlier than usual. It could be a multitude of reasons, but at the end of the day, the numbers do not speak to a guy that should be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Now, if you don't have a starter and you give him an opportunity to compete and he wins out the job, that's fine. All I'm saying is, based on his level of production, combined with watching him still cocking that head back before he throws a pass, watching him throw passes too short, too long, off target, accuracy still being an issue for him, etc. There is no way in hell that I think anyone could sit up here on national television and say definitively that Cam Newton is the starting quarterback in the National Football League. He can be again, and I wish him nothing but the best. I hope that he is, because I root for the brother. But the bottom line is his productivity does not validate any kind of proclamation or declaration that he should be a starting quarterback in the National Football League right now.
That's right. He didn't prove it this year. He did not prove that he's a starter this year, nor did he disprove that he's a starter this year. And when last seen on a football field healthy, he was an above-average starter. When last seen on a football field healthy before this season with Carolina, he was a better passer than he'd been in his MVP season. And you and I have talked often about and debated the influence of Norv Turner on Cam Newton that year. Nevertheless, that's what happened. Then he got hurt. He was the best player and the main factor in a winning team winning. When he having his best season, at least as a passer, including his MVP year, remember he's a former MVP, voted by his peers best player in the game, in the middle of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers' prime. They voted Cam Newton best player in the game, not just the writers, the peers, other football players, was having a better season as a passer when last seen. And his team was winning, and he was the reason why. So that's what we know about Cam Newton. Recent evidence is as follows. Cam is coming off a catastrophic injury. Usually when that happens, a guy needs a year to come back, which is what it took him more or less, and then a year to get back to his previous levels. This was that year. But to compound the situation, events conspired to make Cam look worse than I believe he really is, which includes going to a new team, new system, new everything from the only team he'd ever known as a pro. That team is Bill Belichick's Patriots, with replacing Tom Brady to highest possible standards and high expectations. That team, however, had zero offensive weapons. You lamented consistently last year, Tom Brady was made to look worse than he really is because of a lack of offensive weapons. If anything, this team had fewer than that team. Compounded by the fact that there were opt-outs before the season began of high-ranked defensive players on the team like Chung and Hightower. And by the way, Gilmore got hurt at a certain point. So all that is the case. And then he doesn't get to practice with the team because it's COVID. New team, new system, coming off injury, the whole thing. compounded by the fact that he himself got COVID. So the facilities were shut down. A coach like Belichick, who really needs that time without talent especially, and a brand new quarterback to really practice together and figure things out, didn't get the time. Cam himself had COVID. You and I both noticed that for weeks he didn't look like the same guy, and then he later said, I didn't feel like the same guy. He was in that COVID fog we've heard about. Nevertheless, with all of that, he went 7-9. I know the passing numbers didn't look great. Touchdown to interception ratio, not good. They never looked great with Cam Newton. The team went 7-9 with him as the quarterback and came 2 plays away from very likely going 9-7. So, did he prove he's a starter? No, he didn't prove it because of what you brought up. But did he disprove it? No, he didn't. And were I a team who needed a quarterback, including the Patriots, I would want Cam Newton if he were available.
He had a quarterback rating over 100 just 3 times in 15 games. Only 2 times in 15 games did he throw for over 300 yards. He was benched twice this season, against San Francisco, against Buffalo. Max, when you're the starting quarterback for a team and you're definitively a starting quarterback quality-wise, you don't get benched twice in the season. That's stuff that happens to Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's a journeyman who can start for you on any given Sunday or can find himself riding a bench and holding a clipboard on any given Sunday. When you are a starting quarterback, you are definitively a starting quarterback. Week in and week out, you're penciled in as the guy, not just literally, but figuratively, because everybody knows it. I'm saying the fact that you said he didn't prove it, but he didn't disprove it, means that it's up in the air. And if it's up in the air, that means you're not a starting quarterback. You're someone who can start, but you're not a starting quarterback. It's not definitive. Well, it's a guessing game because of it. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That is fair. I respect that. My opinion is I would make him a starter. I think what you're talking about is a franchise quarterback. He's not a franchise quarterback at this moment. I still think he can be.
Plenty of starters that are not franchise quarterbacks.
All right. He threw 8 TDs to 10 interceptions, but to Max's credit, he did face a lot of adversity, but that is the worst ratio in the AFC. Fellas, we leave it there. Stephen A., you have a Stephen's A-list. Is it going to be any good today? Top 5 NFL MVP. I hope Jeff Saturday and Max destroy you. That's coming up. Plus, guys, we got breaking news on the Browns. We'll give you that a little bit later. Let the fellas react. We'll be right back.
I think it's the Steelers. I think the Browns really have a chance here, and more than even just the likelihood of it, because Cleveland's run defense has gotten better. And as the season's gone on, Cleveland's really gotten an identity. They're the run-the-ball, stop-the-run team. You know, Stephen A., you could talk about how effective they are against the run, although they're pretty good. They're not amazing, right? But they have an identity. That's who they are. Who are the Steelers? You know, the Steelers, they can play defense, but can they run the ball? Not even a little bit. They can't block for the run at all. They can't run block. And Ben Roethlisberger, I hear people say, I still think he can throw the ball down the field. He just doesn't. Why? Because the line's not giving him enough time for the receivers to get downfield? I don't know. When I've seen him take shots downfield, I don't really like what I see. He gets rid of that ball quick on those short little passes. But when the defense is playing up, like if you can't run the ball anyway, right? And that's bad for the run. So I do think the Browns, who have real talent on both sides of the ball and an ascending quarterback, have a good chance to win. But more than that, Stephen A., that would really be an upset. It would be an upset because it would upset the culture. Huh?
No, I said the only reason why I'm